Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Daly. I spent 20 years with United Press International, most of it with the old UPI Radio Network. And my favorite assignment was going on the road producing and hosting American Montage. It was an hour-long weekly program. Now here's an edited version of one of those shows. Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to this edition of American Montage. You know, in past programs, we have tried to show that the North American continent makes us all Americans, whether we live in Mexico, Canada, or the United States. You may have heard a program we did for Montreal earlier this year and from across the border in Tijuana, Mexico. 25 years ago, I took a 2-week car trip around the U.S. and Canada, and I stopped in the ancient walled city of Quebec City, as they like to call it. I thought I was going to spend a day there, but I ended up spending almost an entire week. I fell in love with Quebec City, and when I found out I had the chance to go back there and cover the summer festival, I was absolutely delighted. It is certainly French in its influence. Quebec City is nearly 400 years old, one of the oldest cities on the North American continent. The annual summer festival, though, draws people from all over the world, and the music is truly eclectic. Sit down in any sidewalk cafe, and you're liable to hear, well, gypsy music. This week on American Montage, we are going to explore the wonderful Quebec Summer Festival. I talked to Jean Beauchesne, who is the artistic director, and mentioned to him it must be a very big task to coordinate all of the activity during the 10 days of the festival.
Yes, I have some experience, let's say, basically very modestly. I started 13 years ago, so after all these years, it would be a worry if I wasn't able, to hold that tight. But basically, it's a lot of job for sure. But I have a great team behind me. I'm not the only one for sure. I have 2 other programmers with me. I have a great team regarding logistics, regarding production. We're over 25 people to work on that programming schedule.
One of the things that impresses me is the number of young people here. I'm sure many of them volunteers. There is so much youthful energy here.
That's the reason why it has so much a great effect, on the people here. Young people generate a lot, of the adrenaline, which is essential, to get a very warm, easygoing, freewheeling feeling, And with all that enthusiasm around, each year we're trying to improve as much young people getting into the organization and get, maybe for the first time in their life, a job in which, they can actualize all the potential.
The other thing is, I don't think I have seen a festival recently that has as diverse a commercial sponsorship. The board that lists the names of all the companies participating is a huge sign.
Well, because more and more the governments and grants from governments are less and less important. So we have to go to the private enterprises in order to get the financing we need to maintain something which is pretty unique. Most of our activities are gratis here. So, and some of the times the headliners that we are promoting command fees and ticket prices all year round over $25 to $35 a ticket. So to give that for free for 10,000 people, we need the support, a very strong financial support. And basically, we get it from private sponsorship.
How diverse a group of headliners do you have here? I've heard folk music. I've heard what sounds like Cajun. I've heard semi-classical. Is it pretty much across the board?
Yes. Basically, we do everything which is interesting that we think which will draw as many people as possible. Not only locals, not only nationals, but basically even from our neighbors from the States and from Ontario and the Maritimes. So shows are picked up wherever they have a good draw, for audiences.
John, one final thing. What would you say to someone listening who is with an arts group that's facing that problem with funding? To keep the arts alive, the importance of the whole artistic part of a person's life?
Keep on going. Try to have the best show as possible, and try to distinguish maybe yourself from what's the average in order to create a real interest in what you're doing. Then after that, if you have built through touring a good cult status, you have more and more, town after town, followers and followers and followers, then probably you'll be able to create a good management team, a good production team, a good crew, then media will get in, and fortunately after, sponsorship.
How do provinces publicize their festivals, such as the Quebec Summer Festival? How do states here in the United States publicize things? Well, they send out a lot of information and they hire ad agencies, and if the province or state is big enough, as is the province of Quebec, they set up offices in various parts of the world, including one in Los Angeles. Fair Gordon is the director of publicity for the Western U.S. Her job is to convince we citizens of the United States to go north of the border and visit the province of Quebec, the Montreal, the Quebec City area, the Laurentians, and all the beautiful scenery. Fair, I have dealt basically with the East Coast office being based in Washington, D.C. How important is it for a province, I started to say a country, Quebec is so different, you could almost call it a country, and many of them would like to have it a country. How important is it for a province such as Quebec to have offices around the United States to publicize what they have and to draw the American audience up here?
Well, it's very important because it's always a matter of education, especially about Canada. We all need to learn more in the United States about Canada. So Quebec's presence, for example, in California and then the West Coast is very interesting for the Californians. We get about almost 150,000 Californians to the province of Quebec. So that's a pretty good market for us and represents a lot of income because tourism is the #1 industry in Quebec City, where we are right now, that's for sure. And basically, British Columbia and Quebec and Alberta have representation in the West.
I was going to say you probably face some pretty stiff competition from British Columbia just by proximity.
Absolutely, because that's their #1 market, California, but it's fast becoming a major market for us as well. And we work in concert with the Canadian Consulate General that's established in Los Angeles, and so we work with them up and down the West Coast and into Colorado. So it's very important for us to be there. We can tell people about Quebec. It is a very strong French culture. That's the attraction. That's why people come to Quebec, because it's unique. Lots of joie de vivre, lots of entertainment, and it's like being in Europe and North America.
I would think, too, with the diverse culture you have in California, that you've got an audience there that's already attuned to a diverse kind of thinking, that this becomes very attractive.
Exactly. They're used to being immersed in a Spanish-related culture, so they're not afraid of another culture. They're not afraid to come and try a few words in French and maybe practice their high school French and really enjoy the French culture. In fact, a lot of them already speak a little bit of Spanish, so a little bit of French goes a long way.
What about a timeline for making reservations? Do things fill up fairly quickly?
For the peak of the summer season, which is from July 4th to the end of October, it's time to make reservations because Quebec is very popular at that time of the year. We enjoy occupancy rates of in excess of 90-95%. So if you want to find a room at the date which is convenient to you, you better make a reservation, I would say now. For Winter Carnival, it's time to make reservations to have the best accommodations available to the visitors. But the Carnival is from January 31st to February 15th, so there's still plenty of time to make reservations.
Pierre, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Enjoy your stay in Quebec City.
Just thought I'd throw this in. I met an old fellow named Tony sitting on a park bench in Quebec City with a beautiful beard and a lovely voice, and he said, "Come on over, I'll serenade you for a while." So I listened to Tony and looked out at the beautiful St. Lawrence. A great town with great food and great hospitality, and the price is right, too. Quebec City on this week's American Montage. And there you have it, another edited episode of one of the American Montage programs prepared for the UPI Radio Network back in the 1980s and 90s. I'm Dennis Daly. Thanks for listening. Thanks for going with me this week. And check YouTube for more American Montage programs.